probably what most interested Thomas Jefferson Fitzpatrick. In 1896, he married Mary Linder, many years his senior, by the way. Then from 1903 to 1907, he got the best job in the world, probably. He became a professional collector for the Iowa State Historical Society, which meant that he traveled around the countryside encouraging people to give photographs and books and objects, ephemera, and so forth to the Iowa State Historical Society. Along the same time, of course, he was making a collection himself of Iowa history, and probably not what his contract with them would have required. In other words, he was probably not supposed to be collecting on his own. At that time, we find the first reference to his library, in which he says he has about 6,000 books and 5,000 pamphlets. Just getting started. How many books are in your library, Pat? Do you have any idea? We don't know, but I don't know.
Not really.
I don't know. The University of Nebraska's, all of its libraries put together now have this accession the 2 million volume, but that includes a lot of campuses and a lot of libraries. A small, personal library, 6,000 and 5,000, 11,000 used to be a very large library at that point in time. Then he went back in 1908, 1912, again taught at Graceland College and took over the direction of their library there. Then in 1912, he left Iowa, went to Los Angeles, and became the technical reference librarian for the city of Los Angeles. Stayed there only a year. I have no idea what happened, but he went back to Nebraska, came back to Nebraska, but he didn't come to Lincoln. Instead, he came to the village of Bethany. At that time, Bethany was a separate city, and was in fact a separate city until 1926, when Bethany and University Place were annexed to the city of Lincoln. So we went to Bethany, and there he was teaching at Nebraska Christian University within Cotton University. He was a professor of science, and he primarily was teaching in the School of Medicine at Cotton University. And his wife, Mary, taught at the same institution, probably mostly teaching English, we're not sure, but she was teaching as well, a pretty small crowd. 1917, you may have seen the handwriting on the wall. Nebraska Christian University, Cotton College was literally bankrupt every year of its existence. It went bankrupt the first time in the 1893, 1894 Depression. Was teetering on the edge all the time, and finally during the Great Depression it went bankrupt again and went out of business. But in fact, it's still in business today. There's somebody trying to come in the store up there. It's a store locked. In 1917, he left and Cotton University and went to the University of Nebraska, partly because he wanted to study under Professor Bessie. Professor Bessie, and he wanted to get his doctorate there. Professor Bessie at that time was considered the most knowledgeable man of botany in the world. And it was a period of time when the University of Nebraska was hiring the absolute top of every science. If they could find a scientist anywhere in the world that was at the very pinnacle of his particular topic, his science, they would hire him. The University of Nebraska was constantly in the top 3, 4, 5 universities in the United States. The only school which consistently beat them out was the University of Minnesota or Michigan, I can't remember, very bizarrely. That will change. He was known in the catalog at that time as a fellow in botany. Highest rank he ever reached was assistant professor because he never did get his doctorate. He also became the librarian for the biology department. And as librarian in the biology department, he was well known for building their library with no budget at all. I'll explain how he did that in a minute. By this time, he was a bibliophile. He collected primarily books of literature, fine printing, and Americana. He was particularly interested, of course, in botany and sciences, and his library at that time was listed in Who's Who as having 15,000 books. So it's doubled or trebled in size, and it's about this point in history that he stops counting, or even estimating how many books there are. By 1927, someone else said 20,000, but that was strictly an outsider's guess. A man who'd never seen the library, so it's pretty hard to know much about it. In 1949, Fitzpatrick retired from the University of Nebraska. 1952, he died intestate, March 28, 1952, at age 84, probably of a heart attack in the attic or the upper floor of the house. And there, our story either ends or just really begins. write up in the book collection. So she hired an attorney, a Lincoln attorney by the name of Lloyd Chapman, who represented in the lawsuit in 1950 and 21, so he was known to them. And Chapman came in. And Mary said, here's what we'll do. My suggestion is we write letters to 25 book dealers, whose addresses I have, that I know that Teddy had dealt with throughout the world and acquired books during his lifetime. So let's write them a letter inviting them to come and appraise the library. We'll sell it and hopefully have enough money for me to live out. 25 letters were written. Of the 25 letters that were written, one reply was received, and that was from Lincoln, it was from the Nebraska bookstore, and one man came out. And he came to the house as I remember the house, and I do remember the house because there was nothing special about the house, other than the fact that it had been completely and totally ignored as far as maintenance. The house was a 2.5-story house originally built for a professor at Nebraska Christian University, but it had been later acquired by Fitzpatrick and his wife. 2.5 stories tall, just looked like a farmhouse. White clapboard, except it wasn't white. It appeared never to have been painted. We know it had been painted because we have pictures of it when it was new. It had been painted, but it certainly hadn't been painted again for 70-some odd years, which in itself is not that unusual. Paint at that time was not a great preserver of wood. Eric Sloan, who wrote books on wood, for example, at that time, said there was no evidence that it even helped preserve the wood and everything by painting. My grandfather built a house. I had a house built for him near Havelock, probably in the early part of the 20th century, and it went several decades without being painted. And when it was finally painted, he painted it barn red, because that was the cheapest paint you could buy. I'm sure the cheapest paint you could buy. Sure, my grandmother must have been delighted. But she probably got it painted, and that was Roger Welch did some research one time to figure out why barn red was cheaper than white paint, because it requires extra ingredients and so forth. And after some research, he determined there was a reason why barn red was cheaper. It was because more people used barn red than used it. And why did people buy more barn red? It was because it was cheaper. Absolutely true. Circular argument, but that's it. So the fact that it was not painted was not unusual. The front porch of the house was completely packed solid with junk, boxes of magazines and books and